The sirens came out of nowhere, loud, sudden, violent. Red and blue lights flared like warning flares in a war zone, slashing across the smooth black paint of the Lincoln Navigator as it slowed to a careful stop near the curb of a quiet tree-lined street in Georgetown. The engine purred low. The car hadn't been speeding. No erratic turns. No broken taillight. Just a black man behind the wheel of a luxury SUV. Officer Todd Rimmer stepped out of his cruiser with swagger in his stride, one hand already resting on the grip of his service weapon. His sunglasses mirrored the street, but behind them, his eyes were fixed, predatory, calculating. He approached slowly, eyes narrowed, jaw tight, his posture laced with manufactured authority. He tapped on the driver's window twice harder than necessary. The window lowered with mechanical smoothness. Behind the glass sat a man in his early 50s, deep brown skin, strong jawline dusted with silver stubble, a charcoal gray suit that fit too perfectly to be off the rack, and eyes, those sharp, calm eyes that belonged to someone used to being in control. His voice was low, even, and composed. "Good afternoon, officer." "Is there a problem?" Rimmer didn't answer at first. He just looked at the man with an expression that walked the line between suspicion and disdain. "License. Registration." The man reached slowly toward the glove compartment. "Certainly. May I ask what this stop is regarding?" Rimmer snorted. "We've had reports of suspicious activity in the area. Lot of break-ins. You don't look like you live around here." The man's hands paused mid-motion. He turned and looked at Rimmer, not with fear, not with anger, but with a kind of deliberate stillness, a silence that said he'd heard this 100 times before, that he knew exactly where this was going. "I see," he said, retrieving his documents and handing them over. "I do live here, actually, on Langston Drive." Rimmer took the documents, but barely glanced at them. His hand still hovered near his holster. "Step out of the vehicle." The man's brow twitched slightly. "On what grounds?" "You're acting nervous." The man exhaled once through his nose. "No, I'm being careful. Step out, now." With a calm, controlled motion, the man reached for his phone on the center console and tapped the screen twice. A soft chime sounded. The camera started recording. "For both our protection, officer." Rimmer's face tightened. "You trying to intimidate me with a phone? I'm protecting myself," the man said, opening the door and stepping out slowly. He was tall, easily 6'2", broad-shouldered, the kind of man whose presence filled space even when he didn't speak. Hands on the hood, Rimmer barked. "Am I under arrest?" "Don't question me, boy." That word, it hit the air like a gunshot. The man didn't flinch, but his jaw flexed. The calm was still there, but colder now, sharper. "My name is Malcolm Braxton," he said, slowly, enunciating each syllable like a sentence being carved in stone. "And I strongly suggest you remember that. Don't care if you're Kanye West." Rimmer said, "You're getting patted down." As Rimmer moved forward, the man took one step back, not threatening, just enough. "You're making a very serious mistake." Rimmer rolled his eyes. "You people always think the rules don't apply to you." "You people," Malcolm repeated quietly. "Fascinating." Rimmer was about to respond when a second cruiser pulled up. Sergeant Dana Quinn stepped out, older, more experienced, and clearly annoyed. "Rimmer, what the hell is going on?" "Got a suspicious subject," Rimmer said, refusing to comply. Sergeant Quinn looked over at the man in the suit. Her eyes caught the glint of something on his belt, a badge. "A federal badge." "Wait a minute," she said. "Sir, could I see that identification?" Malcolm reached into his jacket pocket, slowly, and produced a sleek leather wallet. Inside, gold badge, photo ID, and federal credentials that read, "Malcolm Elijah Braxton, Chief, Department of Justice, Internal Affairs Division." Rimmer's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. This isn't real." "Oh, it's real," Malcolm said coolly. "And so is the lawsuit you just walked into." Sergeant Quinn's face went pale. Jesus Christ, I recommend you both stop talking, Malcolm added. From this moment on, every word you say is being recorded and may be used in a federal investigation, especially yours. Officer Reamer. I didn't know, Reamer stammered. No, you didn't, Malcolm said, stepping forward now, his voice steel. Because if you had, you might have used your damn brain before drawing conclusions based on skin color. But I'm not here to teach you manners, officer. I'm here to make sure people like you are held accountable. And trust me, you will be. There was no yelling, no bravado, just truth, delivered with calm, brutal precision. Sergeant Quinn stepped between them. Chief Braxton. I please accept my apology on behalf of the department. Your department will be hearing from mine within the next 24 hours, Malcolm said. And I suggest you prepare every complaint record and body cam log this officer's ever filed, because I'll be watching closely. He turned, got back into his SUV and drove away. The silence he left behind was louder than any siren. That was the day everything changed, and the reckoning had only just begun. The drive back to the Justice Department was quiet, but Malcolm Braxton's mind was anything but. His knuckles gripped the steering wheel tighter than usual. His jaw clenched in a way he hadn't felt in years. He had been profiled before, of course he had, but rarely with this level of arrogance. Reamer wasn't just a bad cop. He was the exact type of rot Malcolm had dedicated his life to rooting out, the kind that wore the badge as armor, not responsibility, the kind who didn't see a man, only a color. As he pulled into the secured underground garage of the DOJ building, his phone rang. He tapped his earpiece. Braxton, he answered curtly. Sir, it's Alicia. You're not going to believe this. Reamer filed a complaint. Malcolm raised an eyebrow. Against me. He said you posed as a federal officer to intimidate him. I already contacted legal. They're laughing. But we thought you should know. Malcolm exhaled slowly. Good. Let them laugh. Forward it to my office. And prep the complaint data from 3rd District. I want Reamer's file on my desk in 10 minutes. Yes, sir. He hung up. Typical. Bullies always played the victim when the light turned on. Upstairs, Malcolm's office was a picture of controlled order, dark wood, leather chairs, glass awards he never bothered to dust. He cared little for recognition. The plaques weren't why he got out of bed in the morning. He opened his laptop, pulling up Reamer's personnel file. It was worse than he thought. 6 complaints in 4 years, all from Black or Latino civilians. All dismissed as inconclusive. Body cam footage mysteriously missing in 3. IA reviews marked insufficient evidence. Malcolm's fingers hovered over the mouse. He clicked open one complaint from a 16-year-old boy named Javier Cortez, who had been stopped and searched for matching a vague description. The report said he had been uncooperative. Malcolm scrolled down. The kid was stopped walking home from school. He had an algebra book in one hand and a soda in the other. He stared at the screen for a long moment, then stood. At 10:12 a.m., he walked straight into the office of Deputy Attorney General Miranda Keene. She looked up from a pile of files and raised an eyebrow. You look like you're about to start a war. I already did, Malcolm replied, dropping Reamer's file on her desk. And this is my first target. She flipped through it. Damn, didn't expect it to be this blatant. Oh, it's never just one bad apple. It's the tree. What's your play? Full investigation into 3rd District. I want an audit of every complaint they've received in the last decade. Every body cam, every IA review. We're going in hard. Miranda leaned back. You'll be stepping on a lot of toes. They'll heal. She gave a slow, approving nod. All right, I'll back you. But prepare for pushback. I live in pushback. Within hours, the news hit every major law enforcement channel. DOJ launches federal probe into DC's 3rd District after racial profiling incident involving Chief Malcolm Braxton. The backlash was immediate. Police union reps were on cable news, calling it a politically motivated witch hunt. Local talk. Radio hosts shouted about reverse racism. But Malcolm, he just kept working. Each night, he sat in his office going through files, reviewing footage, building timelines. He refused assistance, refused shortcuts. He wanted to see it, all with his own eyes. One night, nearly midnight, Alicia knocked gently and poked her head in. "Sir, there's someone here to see you." Malcolm looked up, surprised. "At this hour?" "He says he's a parent. Javier Cortez's father." Malcolm stood instantly. "Send him in." A tall man with tired eyes and construction-calloused hands stepped into the room. His hat was wrung between his fingers. "Mr. Cortez," Malcolm said gently, gesturing to a chair. "Please." The man sat slowly. I heard what you're doing. I just wanted to say thank you." "You don't owe me thanks," they said. "Nothing would ever happen to that cop. They said it was a waste to complain. But you're doing something." Malcolm's voice softened. "Your son deserves to walk home from school without fear. We all deserve better." Mr. Cortez looked down. "They think we're invisible." Malcolm's jaw tightened. "Not anymore." That same night, Malcolm received a call from the DCPOLICE chief, Julian Blackwell. "You're making waves, Braxton. Good. Maybe they'll reach the bottom. You're going to burn a lot of bridges. Then they weren't worth crossing. You ever think about running for something?" "I already am," Malcolm replied. "I'm running for justice." The line went quiet. Then Blackwell laughed softly. "All right, just don't get assassinated." Malcolm hung up, but the words lingered. He knew the risks, knew that exposing corruption in law enforcement came with a target on his back, but he wasn't afraid. Not anymore, because something had shifted. A week later, Malcolm stood before a packed press conference. He wore the same suit, same calm expression. But this time, there was fire in his voice. "We cannot allow a badge to become a shield for racism. We cannot allow silence to become complicity. The DOJ will pursue justice not just in the courtroom, but in every patrol car, every precinct, every stop on the street." Behind him, a screen displayed still frames of body cam footage, complaint summaries, testimonies from civilians long ignored. Malcolm pointed to the screen. "This is not just about me. This is about every person who was treated like less because of the color of their skin. This is about rebuilding trust, not with words but with action." A reporter called out, "Chief Braxton, do you believe Officer Remer should be fired?" Malcolm looked directly into the camera. "I believe Officer Remer should never have worn the badge in the first place." Gasps echoed through the room. The message was clear. Malcolm wasn't asking, he was doing. He walked off the stage to a storm of questions. He didn't answer any. His actions would speak louder than anything he could say, and they did. Over the next month, 5 officers were suspended pending investigation. 2 resignations came quietly in the night. A new training mandate was issued across the state. Civilians began showing up to precinct meetings, emboldened, and through it all, Malcolm never slowed down. Because this wasn't about revenge. It was about revolution. And he was just getting started. Malcolm Braxton barely slept. Sleep had become a luxury he couldn't afford. Not when every hour brought new files, new testimonies, new names of people hurt by a system that had long since forgotten what justice meant. The walls of his office were now pinned with timelines, photographs, complaint maps, and handwritten notes. At the center of it all, in red ink, 3 words circled: pattern, culture, power. He stood before the board one morning, sipping black coffee as Alicia walked in. "We got another one," she said grimly. Body cam footage from 2021. Officer Remer again. Victim, 32-year-old black Navy vet. Pulled over for driving erratically. No charges. Officer report says the man became aggressive. "Let me guess," Malcolm muttered. "No audio." Alicia nodded. "Mic was malfunctioning. Again. Show me." She tapped a tablet. The footage began. Dashcam only. A dark sedan pulls over. Officer Rimmer approaches, already tense. The vet steps out, hands up, calm, but Rimmer lunges, shoves him against the car, and the vet's head snaps forward against the hood. Blood, it's fast, ugly, and silent. The timestamp matched a dismissed complaint. No follow-up, no investigation. Malcolm set the coffee down. Get me the vet's name. I want to talk to him myself. Yes, sir, by afternoon. Malcolm was walking up the narrow porch steps of a modest home in southeast D.C. The door opened before he knocked. You him? The man asked. A long scar ran across his forehead. His voice was low and cautious. I'm Malcolm Braxton. The man studied him for a second, then opened the door wider. Come in. Inside, it smelled like lemon polish and old wood. Tidy. Pictures on the mantel. A young man in uniform. A little girl on his shoulders. A folded flag in a glass box. They told me to let it go, the man said as he sat down. Said it wasn't worth fighting. Tell me what happened. I didn't do anything. Just drove home from work. He pulled me over. Didn't even say why. Next thing I know, he's slamming my face into the hood. I wake up in a holding cell with no charges. Did you file a complaint? I tried. Said the footage was inconclusive. I asked for a lawyer. They laughed. Malcolm looked him in the eyes. It's not too late. The vet blinked. You're serious. I'm not here for press. I'm here for accountability. We're reopening your case. The vet sat back, as if the weight of years had been lifted off his chest. No one ever believed me. Not even my daughter. They will now. And they did. Within days, the footage was reclassified as critical evidence. Malcolm personally ensured the case reached the Civil Rights Division. Media picked it up. The veteran, Marcus Haynes, became a face of the movement. And Rimmer. He went into hiding. But Malcolm wasn't finished. He traveled to community centers, to churches, to high schools. He didn't go with cameras or scripts. He went to listen. In one church basement, an elderly woman with a walker stood up. My grandson was arrested for looking at a cop too long, she said, voice trembling, charged with obstruction. He was 14, in a gymnasium. A young boy asked him, is it always going to be like this? And Malcolm knelt down, met his eyes, and said, not if we fight hard enough. One night, as Malcolm walked alone through his neighborhood, a car slowly rolled up behind him. The hairs on his neck stood up. Old instincts kicked in. The window lowered. A voice called out, still think you're invincible? Braxton. Malcolm turned. The man in the car wore a hoodie, his face in shadow. You're making enemies. Big guns. I've had enemies my whole life, Malcolm replied, but now I have something else. The man chuckled. What? Power. And I'm not afraid to use it. The car sped off. Malcolm didn't flinch. He went home, kissed his wife on the forehead, and stayed up until dawn writing a new policy framework for national use of force standards. The next week, he presented it directly to the Attorney General. They didn't expect him to come with facts, data, and passion, but he did, and they approved it. The Braxton Protocols, as they were later dubbed, became the gold standard for police. Oversight, a policy born from pain, hardened by fire, and delivered with the force of a man who refused to bow. But with every win came new resistance, emails threatening him, protesters outside his office, not Black Lives Matter, but angry. Red-faced men with signs that read, Braxton is the real racist and Blue Lives Matter more. He never responded. He just worked. One day, an old friend from the academy showed up, unannounced, Captain Isaiah Dunn. They hugged like brothers. I saw the video. Isaiah said, that cop didn't know who he was messing with. It's not about me, Malcolm replied. I know. That's what scares them. They sat in silence for a while, watching the sun set over the city they once patrolled together as rookies. You ever think it'll get better? Isaiah asked. Malcolm looked out the window. It has to. That night, as Malcolm returned to his office, he found an envelope on his desk. No name, no return address. Inside was a single photo, his house, his wife, taken from across the street. No words, Just a message. He stared at it for a long time, then calmly picked up the phone. Alicia, increase security on all DOJ-IA personnel. Full perimeter sweep of my home. Get me U.S. Marshals, if you have to. Sir, what happened? They just reminded me why we can't stop. And he didn't. Because this wasn't about one cop, or one district, or one city. This was about changing a system designed to protect itself. And Malcolm Braxton wasn't here to ask for change. He was here to demand it. By the time the sun rose over D.C.'s next day, the Department of Justice was in full lockdown mode. The threat against Malcolm Braxton had triggered internal protocols. And by 8 a.m., armed marshals were posted outside his home, his car, and his office. Still, he arrived on time. Suit sharp, eyes sharper. He walked past the security, nodded to the agents, and went straight to the war room. There, a full investigative team had been assembled. Alicia briefed him without hesitation. The photo was traced, snapped from a surveillance drone, unregistered. Someone went to serious lengths to get it. Someone scared, Malcolm said, sliding into his seat. Good. Rumor's attorney just went on Fox News, she added. Said you're targeting honest white officers for political points. Let him speak, Malcolm replied. Every word makes my case stronger. The investigation into the Threer district had now expanded into a federal inquiry covering multiple precincts. Malcolm had uncovered a systemic pattern of cover-ups, ghost files, and racial targeting orders disguised as urban saturation directives. The rot went deeper than he expected, and yet it didn't surprise him, because this wasn't new. It was just hidden. And now it was exposed. That afternoon, Malcolm met with the Attorney General in a closed-door session. The room was cold, wood-paneled, silent except for the ticking of the clock. Braxton, the AG said, "You've stirred a hornet's nest. Good. Let them swarm. We've received pressure from city officials, union leaders, governors, even a few senators. They want you to back down." Malcolm looked him dead in the eye. "Tell them no." The AG leaned forward. "You understand what you're doing here. This isn't just career-ending. It could be life-threatening." "I understand perfectly," Malcolm said, "but I didn't take this job to stay safe. I took it to do what no one else had the guts to do." The AG exhaled, then smiled. "Then you have my full support." Malcolm stood. "Then we move." And move they did. Within 48 hours, arrests were made. Not just officers, but administrators, supervisors, and one retired deputy chief. They were charged with falsifying reports, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy to violate civil rights. The media erupted. CNN, Braxton uncovers corruption ring inside D.C. Police Department, NBC, Internal Affairs, chief goes to war with systemic racism and wins. Twitter exploded. Hashtag Braxton breaks the blue wall trended for 3 days straight. But the real moment came 2 weeks later. Malcolm stood once, again in front of the press. But this time, he wasn't alone. To his left stood Marcus Haynes, the Navy vet, who was brutalized and silenced. To his right, Javier Cortez, now 17, taller, prouder, finally heard. Behind him, a dozen citizens who had once been ignored, now vindicated. Malcolm took the mic. "I didn't come here today as an officer. I came as a black man, a father, a citizen." He paused, looked out over the crowd, cameras, eyes, hearts open. "For too long, we've been told to wait, to calm down, to trust the system. But the system only protects itself. Until now, the room was quiet. I have no interest in vengeance, only in truth. And the truth is this: justice isn't given, it's taken, fought for, bled for, and we are fighting." He turned slightly, gesturing to Marcus and Javier. "They are why I do this. Not for statistics, not for speeches, for people, for futures, stolen and dignity denied." Then he stepped back. No dramatic ending, just silence, the kind that said, "We're not done." That night, Malcolm walked through his neighborhood again. This time, people nodded, waved. One woman placed her hand over her heart. Another man said, "Thank you, Chief." Kids, on bikes, followed him for a block like he was a hero from a comic book. When he reached his house, he saw his wife waiting on the porch. She smiled. "They're calling you a movement now." He chuckled. "They used to call me a threat." "You still are," she said, kissing his cheek. "But now, to the right people." Inside, the lights were low. The news still played in the background. One anchor said, "Chief Malcolm Braxton has become the face of modern justice reform. But sources say he has no intention of slowing down. If anything, he's just getting started." And she was right, because days later, Malcolm flew to Minneapolis, then Chicago, then Atlanta. City after city invited him to review, to rebuild, to reimagine. He launched a national task force, partnered with civil rights groups, and proposed the Braxton Federal Accountability Act, a sweeping legislative reform requiring federal oversight of all police departments with racial profiling complaints above a threshold. Congress pushed back, so he pushed harder. And when the act finally passed by just 2 votes, Malcolm stood on the Capitol steps, not with pride, but with purpose. "This is not a finish line," he has said. "This is the starting gun." Years later, people would write books about him, call him controversial, revolutionary, dangerous, a disruptor, a hero. But Malcolm never believed in labels. He believed in people and the power of truth. In his final interview before retirement, a young journalist asked him, "Chief Braxton, if you could go back to the day that officer pulled you over, would you change anything?" He smiled, slow, wise, tired, unshaken. "No," he said. "That moment showed me exactly what I was fighting, and exactly why I had to win." The camera caught a glint in his eye as he stood and walked away. Forever remembered, never forgotten, justice in flesh and blood. His name was Malcolm Braxton, and he changed everything.